How's it going, my friend? I am here today with my friend Chen, who is an email marketing and copywriting specialist, and we're going to be talking about the power of story to build your tribe. And we're going live right now. How's it going, my friends? I am Ryan Rhodes, the creative director and founder at reformdesigns.biz. I just screwed up right in my intro. Let's try that again. Hi, my friends. I'm Ryan Rhodes, the creative director and founder at reformdesigns.biz, and today I'm here with my friend Chen Lehner. Chen is a email marketing, copywriting, overall marketing specialist, and today we're going to be talking about the power of story to build your tribe and build your brand. And so, Chen, why don't you introduce yourself? And first of all, thank you for coming and being here today, everybody, and Chen especially. So let's, just introduce yourself and let people know who you are and a little bit about, why you got started in the first place.
Oh, totally. Yeah. Well, thank you so much for having me on, Ryan. I'm really, really excited to be here, and I've loved these little shows that you've been doing. And yeah, my name is Chen Lehner. The main thing that I really enjoy doing is helping coaches and transformational entrepreneurs, people who want to make a positive impact and are actively making a positive impact in the world, spread their message. And I do that through helping them attract clients and attract their tribe through email marketing, usually specifically through email marketing and or different types of product launches. And I got started about 4.5, 5 years ago as a personal assistant, and just realized that not all of the people, but a lot of the people who were marketing themselves online and selling some kind of a transformational program, service, or retreat, some kind of any of those types of things, really were really, really, really good at what they did, but not very good at actually marketing what they were doing and attracting the right people into their retreats, into their programs, into their services. So I just kind of niched my way down and followed the need of the market that I wanted to serve. And that's really, in like a high overview, how I got started.
So I have a microphone. This microphone here is not actually real. For those of you who don't know, this is actually a cartoon. And it's funny because it's not just there as a prop, it's also there to remind me that if I take my hand farther out of my webcam, it cuts off my arm. So it's also a cue marker. But I have a microphone over here, which is right here, and so sometimes the mute button gets stuck, and so that's why if it takes me a little second sometimes to respond, that's what I'm doing. So anyway. That's really cool, man. I mean, in terms of the being in that marketing space and the transformational coaching space, that's actually one of the ways that I got started with what I do now as a designer and author, speaker, whatever. So much of it was I was in a space where I wanted to turn my life around and I wanted to kind of do my own thing and run my own business, and had this thought. I was like, well, how hard could it be? And I discovered how hard it could be very quickly.
It can be as hard as you want it to be, Ryan.
Yeah, exactly. But I realized, well, there's a lot of people out there who have written books and shared their own stories, and they talk about how they got started, and they share tips and tricks. And so I found myself in the self-help section of Borders or Barnes and Noble, and moment of silence for Borders. But it was one of those things where I was like, wow, there's this whole community of people who are dedicated to being better today than they were yesterday at whatever it is that they're doing. And so I started really kind of diving in and looking for ways to connect with those people and offer my services as a designer and website designer and that kind of thing. But I noticed the same thing about, like you said, that a lot of these people, it's like they have good messages, but they're not necessarily the greatest at sharing those messages. So just out of your experience, why do you think that is?
I mean, I've found so like personally, I grew up in probably the most hippie alternative environment that you could possibly imagine. Like if you imagine the wooest of the woo West Coast California environment, that was me as a child, like literally running around on a hippie commune naked for most of my childhood. So from coming from that world out into going to public school and then back into the healing arts where I started out like in a business sense, I guess, doing massage and Reiki and counseling and stuff like that, and then transitioning into a much more like logical, I don't know, logical brain sort of business style. Um, a lot of the times I find that people who have this really powerful message or they have this thing that they really want to share with the world, they're speaking a different language than the people that they actually want to talk to and that they actually want to attract. And there's this kind of language barrier that happens that we get into these bubbles and we don't really take the time to go outside and actually like go get a drink with our plumber per se, or like go out to a bar and just sit and watch like a football game with the average kind of person. Especially in California, I think we get these like where I live right now, we get into these like really insulated bubbles, even within the transformational communities, or like almost especially within the transformational communities. And when that happens, I just see we all start speaking the same language, and we all start thinking that everyone will understand what it is that we're talking about. And so we get into this really woo way of talking and thinking that actually disconnects us from attracting and talking to the person that we really want to help the most. I kind of have it, I call it kind of the concept of landing the plane. It's really hard for a lot of people to actually land the plane, especially if they're doing transformational work, on what it is that they're actually doing with someone and what's the actual everyday effect of that transformation in that person's life. So that's the answer that I have right now.
So in terms of, I like that concept of landing the plane, because obviously so much of us whenever we're doing our own thing, running our own business, selling our own products, we're trying to figure out, okay, how do we close the sale? How do we close the sale? How do we close the sale? And there's all this sales training and there's all this stuff and all these tricks and ways that you can kind of do that. But at least for me, I've always had a really hard time with that stuff because it feels disingenuous. It feels like it's mostly self-serving as opposed to serving the client and helping them get what they want. And I think it was Zig Ziglar years and years ago that said, like, if you help as many people as you can to get what they want, you'll have no problem getting all the things that you want. It was either him or Dale Carnegie, I can't remember which. And so, in your experience with landing the plane, so to speak, can you talk about a time that you were working with a client who was struggling with that, but maybe didn't understand that they were struggling with it, and how do you communicate that in a way where it's like they don't get upset or offended? Because I know for me, like with what I do when I'm working on websites or branding or something like that, it's like I can immediately see the problems that these people might be having. But it's like, especially if you're like cold calling or something, it's like, how do you call someone and say, hey, how's your website going? And they're like, it's going great. And I'm like, it's not really great, I don't think. So how do you navigate that and land the plane? Like,
yeah, I mean, so you're asking, how do I communicate to a client how they're not landing the plane when I notice
yeah.
it?
So I mean, I guess a better way to ask it is like, do you even bother reaching out to those types of people, or in the way that you're networking with others? I guess before you can talk about landing the plane, you have to figure out how do you even take off. So just walk me through a typical client job for you.
Yeah. Well, generally, I meet most of my clients through referrals or through my network already. And it's the same, I have to do the same process that I take my clients through, which is actually meeting them where they're at, and then doing exactly what you say of like actually helping them like see what the real problem is. A lot of what copywriting and like what I actually do in when I'm working with clients is actually a lot of educating an audience on what it is that they are doing probably wrong, and how they could be doing it right. And just there's this idea that I forget, someone said it, but there's this idea that if you can describe someone's problem better than they can describe it, they will automatically trust you. So a lot of the time someone will come to me and they'll say, oh, I'm having trouble, like my emails aren't getting opened. And so what I'll do is I'll go and look at their past subject lines, and then I try to use the things that I notice as opportunities to invite them into a new level of thinking or a new way of thinking. And so it's a lot of educating people on how to think about a specific thing. Like if it's subject lines, it's how to think about writing a subject line and what's the actual purpose of the subject line, and what's its job, what do you need to do. And when I lay out some of the parameters, and it's like the guideposts to the structural elements, so then things start to click into place and it starts to land what the actual purpose is. So when I'm talking with a new client, I will get a sense of what the problem is, and then basically just use the skills that I have with counseling to reflect back to them and empathize with them, and then help them see or invite them into a new way of looking at that problem that they might not have seen before, so they can get some altitude, get some perspective. And that, for me, has worked really, really well. And I mean, you mentioned something about the sales conversations feeling disingenuous, and I totally resonate with that as well. And I have come to the place where I see sales as an act of service, and like professional selling is identifying the need of a person or a group of people, and then finding the solution to that need, and building the bridge between where that individual has that need and the solution. Like as a copywriter, I'm a salesman in print, so I write words to sell products. So a lot of what I do is not actually writing, it's going out and listening to what people are actually saying they want, identifying what it is that they actually need, and then using words to build the bridge between those things that they're experiencing and the solution that I'm selling, or the solution that I'm marketing. And when I see it in that light, I see sales as a way of, I'm actually just helping people solve their problems. And all I have to do is just build a bridge. And when I do that, then it just becomes really easy, because that's what I do naturally as a human being. I'm just a naturally service-based person. So for me, seeing sales as service allows me to just basically just go, for lack of a better word, balls to the wall with helping people. If that makes sense.
Yeah, absolutely. That's great. I actually, I've been listening to an audiobook by, I think it's Bob Berg. It's called Go Givers, Sell More. And I think it's a sequel to a book that they wrote called The Go Giver. But it's specifically talking more about the sales process. And I didn't realize, but apparently the original Latin word from which we get our word sales can literally be translated to something along the lines of to give, which is fascinating.
I have to write it down.
And I didn't look it up, so don't quote me on it. But that's what they said in the book.
But I'm an etymology geek. I will find a word, and like I will follow it back to like, what is the root of this word?
Yeah.
Like abundance actually comes from the root of water.
Interesting.
Yeah.
I did not know that. I actually have a very expensive English writing degree. And so, it's appreciated in value in the sense of the interest rate. Don't borrow money for school, kids. It's a trap. Anyway, that's really fascinating about just the way that you kind of look at the sales process. Because I know for me, it's something you have to do intentionally. It's something that you have to really massage and work on, because we're constantly bombarded with advertising and so much sales stuff and whatever. It's like, especially in our industry, we have to sell to survive. But I feel like, especially nowadays, there's so many opportunities to rise above the fray and rise above the noise and do it in a different way and then do it in a better way where people don't feel like you're just sleazy. They feel like you're, like you said, solving a problem. So
Yeah.
that's really great, man. I think it's a really worthwhile thing that you're doing. So thank you.
Thanks.
So that's actually a good way to segue into the next question that I have for you.
Mm-hmm.
With business owners, especially if you're starting your own thing, one of the biggest problems that people run into is the problem of how to get seen and how to get your stuff seen, especially when we're dealing with algorithms and so much noise and just all the different drama that can happen in the outside world when we're just trying to build a better one, right? So
Yep.
how did you differentiate yourself from the crowd? And why do you believe that your tribe supports you the way that they do?
Because I'm real and I'm myself, like at its core. Like people support me because I'm honest and transparent and I stand by my values and I am the same person as I appear online as I am in person. Like that's basically what it cuts down to. I've met so many people that have a completely different internet personality than they do in-person personality. And there's this concept, I'm sure you're probably familiar with it, with the congruency in an advertising campaign. Where congruency basically means like that your Facebook ad, for example, should be congruent with the landing page that the Facebook ad is sending them to. So it also applies to people. I actually just wrote an email to my list about this, how incongruence will murder your marketing faster than anything else, especially if you're a personality business, like you're a coach, you're a personality business. If you have a different personality than you in person than you display online, when someone meets you in person, that trust that you've been building up with them is going to be immediately broken. And it's kind of disappointing when I've had that experience with people. Like it's really weird.
It's super disappointing because
Yeah.
it's like you build this thing up in your mind and then you meet them and they're like a total
Yep.
jerk or whatever. Brent Metcalf just
Totally.
said, "I know I sure appreciate authenticity, so kudos for that."
Thanks, man.
Absolutely.
Yeah, I appreciate that. Yeah. I mean, yeah. So like, I mean, that's like on a foundational level. In terms of being seen, like, and building an audience, like I don't know, building an audience from scratch. A lot of it comes from like whenever I start a new project with anyone, the first thing that I do is learn as much as I can about their product and their business, and then go out and do as much possible market research as I can. And doing the market research and actually diving into and doing surveys and talking to people and actually asking them, what are you actually struggling with? It accomplishes so much and solves so many of the problems that most transformational entrepreneurs struggle with, because it allows you to actually get in touch with and in sync with that ideal person that you want to help, and learn their language for how they describe their situation. And what that allows you to do is create marketing materials, messages, Facebook posts, emails, launches, videos, YouTube videos, whatever it is that whatever medium you want to use to build an audience on. It's built on that foundation of the market research that you do, that actually gets in touch with that person that you're really wanting to serve. And so your all of your messages, all of your content is built on basically a rock solid, scientifically backed market research that you've done. Like it's basically like scientific advertising. You're actually going out asking people what it is that they're struggling with, and then using basically their own words to build content, to build messages and messaging material, whether it's blogs or videos or whatever you want it to be. And when you do that, how that actually allows you as the business owner, the coach, the person that's writing the emails, whether or not if you're not even owning the business at all and you're just writing the Facebook post for a business, it allows you to um, basically speak only to that ideal client for you, and actually drive away everyone else. I always say, like, people come to me and they're like, oh my God, I'm getting all of these unsubscribes. And I'm like, great. Those are all of the people that are not your ideal client. And that means like the more unsubscribes you get, the better you're being with like how nailed in your messaging is.
Well, and then I know for me when that has happened, especially like it happens a lot when you get much more consistent with your delivery, because then you really narrow down like who actually wants to hear this, or are there
Yeah.
just, it's kind of like that whole thousand true fans concept that Kevin Kelly talks about, where
Yeah.
you're really niching down and you're creating content for that core group of people, instead of trying to create this big massive thing where you're trying to reach
Yep.
everybody because, well, maybe they could be a client. It's like, no, I only want these people who are like raving fans, because then your email open rates go way up, because then the people aren't just getting emails and be like, oh, I might read that later. It's like, I know for me, whenever Tim Ferriss sends out an email, just because I've learned so much from his content over the years, I
Yep.
read every single one of them. And it's one of those things where, when you're trying to develop a brand or build a business, that I find, especially with small business owners and people who are just getting started, they have this idea of, oh, I have to go viral. I have to go really wide and really big. And I'm like, that is the literal polar opposite of what you should be thinking about. So,
Yep.
I mean, have you had, talk about, any, I guess, can you give a specific example of a client that you've worked with recently? You don't have to like mention their name or something,
Yeah.
but just in terms of how you have helped them go from, thinking like that to, really focusing more on the niche. Is it more of just doing the work and showing the results, or, what does that look like? And it looks like Mary B has joined. So hi, Mary from Europe. So.
Um, let's see. I do a combination of done for you copywriting for like more in a high ticket way, and then I have some coaching clients where I coach them on their writing and their marketing materials. So one of my coaching clients recently, um, even in the first 2 weeks of just having her hone in to talk to just one person, she had, I think she, I don't know, I think she doubled or tripled the investment that she made in
So,
working with
so
me.
when you say having her talk just to one person, can you? I've heard, I know the concept just from being in the
Mm-hmm.
space, but can you talk a little bit about that before you go further? Like when you're
Yeah.
writing, in the concept of just writing for one.
Yeah. So a really one of the highest leverage things that you can do in your messaging is to write and talk to one person. So when you're shooting a video, when you're writing a Facebook post, when you're writing an email newsletter to your audience, write it as if you're writing to that one person. So just like a couple of minutes ago, I was talking about doing your market research so that you identify that that really ideal client for you. Once you have that ideal client, write all of your messages to that one single specific ideal client and only to that one person. And when you do that, what happens is it's counterintuitive, but you'll actually be talking to more people because you're grounding your messages in real life situations. A really quick concrete example of this where I like saw this in action and just like, oh my God, got the power of it, was when I was working with a company called Dancing Freedom. And we did this 21-day free dance challenge. And then we launched a paid course afterwards. And a friend of mine was considering doing the paid course. And so I called her up and I was like, why aren't you joining? Why do you want to join? And why aren't you joining? And then I got all of her answers, and I basically sat down and wrote her an email and sent it out to all of the people that had joined the challenge who were paying attention to the messages, who I was marketing this paid course to. And that one email was responsible for over half of all of the sales for the paid course. And so there was seven, I think I sent 7 emails, and one email was responsible for over half. And that's the power of talking to one person, and the power of like really identifying who that ideal person is.
So
Does that answer?
yeah, oh yeah, that's a great answer, and I think that
Cool.
it really hammers home that concept of, when you're building your tribe. Uh, for anyone who's trying to build an audience, it really, I think a lot of times people don't, they miss the forest for the trees kind of thing. It's like they're thinking of like, I need to get this giant audience, but it's like, well, that giant audience is made up of individual people who all have specific
Yep.
things they love, things that they're wanting to do, goals, dreams, all of that. And if you're not talking to those individuals, then your tribe doesn't really have much of a cohesion. And a lot of times, I think that people see certain videos that go super viral or whatever, and they're like, "Oh, that's what I need to do," but they can't understand. It's like, well, what is it about videos that go viral? At least as far as I understand it over the years, it is because those types of videos appeal to a certain demographic of people who are much more prone to share things that are funny or sensational, whatever. It doesn't matter if it's good news, bad news, cat videos or whatever. Those
Yep.
types of content really, really resonate with that individual. And
Yep.
that's something you can practice. It's something that you can do over time and learn to get better at. And
Yep.
I think that it's something that more people certainly should consider if they're wanting to build any kind of audience. So
Yeah. I mean, that's a lot of what I do with people is helping them do their market research. And then the thing that really sets you apart, like once you do the market research, like anyone in your market, like anyone marketing or selling anything to the same group of people can do the market research into those people. So once you've done your market research, the thing that really, really sets you apart from everyone else and also connects you really, really intimately to the people that you're really trying to talk to is your own story and where you come from. So like if we go through the process of someone new meeting you, you do your market research, you can talk to that ideal person, then that ideal person has that problem that you solve. They find you, they come in, they're attracted to you naturally because you're speaking their same language in words they understand and meeting them where they're at. And then once they come inside and they're kind of like in your world a little bit, then you can tell your story and you share your story, and that's what solidifies the bond with the person that's coming in. It's basically like you're just developing a relationship. A really, really helpful thing to do is to map out all of the steps that your customers take to first contact with you, to like, what are they searching for, like what are the things that they're searching for, to the first contact, to like opting into your email list, to what are the emails that they get, to how do they actually sign up for a free session, or how do they actually purchase the product or add the thing to your cart, and then how do they actually pull out the credit card out of their, like, map out all of the steps in that entire process. And you just outlined your funnel. Like a lot of funnels is like buzzword right now, and like funnel is not an online term. Funnel is not a specific thing to an online thing. Like a funnel could just be you going out to networking events, getting leads there, and then you follow up with them and have coffee and then convert them into a customer. Like that is a funnel as well. You don't have to have an online version of that same process. A funnel is just a word for the process that you guide someone through, that you take someone through. I want to say really specifically call it the word guide, because you have to take their hand and hold them through the process of that first contact to, oh my God, you have this problem. I know I can help you with this problem. Let me show you how, and here's how we're going to do it. And this is what's going to happen. And then you guide them through that process.
so basically, it's kind of like they're Luke Skywalker and you're Yoda,
Yeah.
and you're helping them learn the power of the force that they have within them.
Yeah. Inside of your marketing,
Yeah.
like not even inside of your programs, but inside of like some of the most powerful marketing messages and materials, in my opinion, are when you cast your client or your customer as the hero, and then you're Yoda and you can help them do that. That is a traditional like expert style business. where you are the expert and you're guiding someone through the process. There's a lot of different, like if we're talking about stories, there's a lot of different stories that you can take on as a brand or as a personality. The expert, like what you talk about with the client, the customer being Luke Skywalker and you being Yoda, that's one. But you can also be Han Solo. Like the key is to identify which character and your relation and what relationship you want to have to your client, and then stick to that story and stick to that relationship. A lot of, like a really classic example is there's the expert one, that what we talk about with the expert, and then there's the reporter or the evangelist. The reporter goes out into the world, finds something new, brings it back to an audience of people, or brings it back to the tribe, and then tells everyone, hey, I found this new thing, it's really great, it allows us to do this now, and it solves this problem, and this is all we have to do it. That's a very common personality or story kind of archetype that you can use. A lot of podcasters, a lot of podcasters use that kind of story archetype because it's naturally trustworthy and attractive.
Have you, on that note, have you read? It's an excellent book that my friend Rodney Vance recommended. It's called The Writer's Journey by Christopher Vogler. And so it's one of the things that I do, and I'm not ignoring you guys while I'm typing down here. I actually take show notes while we're doing this. One of the things that I like to do with these is just write down books that pop in my head to recommend for people while we're doing this. And so that one's called The Writer's Journey by Christopher Vogler, and like he basically breaks down Joseph Campbell's hero's journey myth. But in the context of writing for screenplays and books and whatever. And so it's a really fascinating journey, just in the context of, this whole mythos of the hero's journey in the context of doing creative work. So I think you'd get a lot out of it. I'm about a third of the way through it because it's really thick and kind of heady, but it's good.
Awesome.
So, okay, great. So we're about half an hour in.
Did I answer you had a question there was something you asked, an example, like if I could give an example of when someone starts talking to one person, but I think I gave an example of that. Oh.
Yeah, I think so. But if you have others, just definitely go ahead. I'm taking notes here, so.
Yeah. No, I think I gave a good example.
Well, yeah, you said that you had basically you wrote one email that ended up accounting for like over half of the sales of a course that you did.
Yep.
And so actually, I do have a question in regards to the. Actually, Brent just put the link for the Christopher Vogler book in the comments. Thank you, sir. So. If anybody has questions while we're talking about this stuff, whether it's for your own brand, your own business, definitely let us know. But in terms of, there's so many different pieces of what you do. Like what does your daily routine look like? Like whenever when Chen wakes up in the morning, like do you have like a specific time that you're like, all right, 4:30 in the morning, I'm up, I'm copywriting genius, or is it like, shoot from the hip? Because I'm working on getting better at my own daily routine with my own life and my own content and stuff. Me doing these interviews every week is a big stretch for me, but we're going strong on it 7 times in. So, but yeah, what's your daily routine look like, and what's your favorite part of all of that?
Yeah, great question. My daily routine on a general. Oh God, I used to try to do the like wake up, workout, green smoothie, breakfast. Like I'm not that person. I like to wake up slow. So I generally wake up around 7:30 to 8:30 and then go for a 20-minute walk, do something like that, come back and do a handwriting exercise. I am a big proponent and advocate for hand copying any kind of especially sales copy if you're trying to learn sales copy. I like to hand copy for like 20 minutes, something that I know has converted because it gets it into the back of my mind.
So when
And
you
then,
say hand copy, you mean like literally looking at something that you know was successful and then just writing
yep,
it?
yep, hand copying it out.
Very cool.
Yeah, and it works. Like I did that. I've been doing it for about a year and a half, I think. And I think I did a course called Copy Hour. I highly recommend it. It's very affordable for anyone wanting to learn copy, and he just sends you an email every day for 3 months with a handwriting assignment and breaks down all of the different pieces of writing a sales letter. So it's really, really informative if you just want like a super deep crash course in copywriting. Um, if you want like email copywriting, I kind of specialize in that. That's what I like to do. Um, but yeah, hand copying, it programs. There's a connection between these two fingers, your thumb and your pointer finger, to the back, the kind of reptilian part of your brain, your subconscious mind. So what I can now do is basically sit down, get myself into a kind of stream of consciousness place, sit down, start writing, and basically trust that what's coming out is relatively high quality writing. So I can write, I think I time myself, I think I wrote, I don't know, 1,400 words or 2,400 words in like an hour. It was like, I write, just sit down and write an entire sales page at once. And that's really fun. It gets really meditative. So usually I like to start my day by doing about 20 minutes of that I like to just keep myself on some kind of a routine with that. And then I'll write an email for myself. I like to take the first hour to 2 hours working on stuff for my business. So I send an email once a day, Monday through Friday. So I write some kind of educational, value-based, entertaining tip to my list, and people love it. So I sit down and I write that email usually in the morning, and then go into client work, take a nice break for lunch, work out in the evening. That's a general day.
So I do find it interesting too, and I ask a lot of people who I think are high performers and building their own thing, and I spend a lot of time studying them and whatever. And there is definitely a theme of essentially working on your business first and foremost before you get into doing client work and stuff like that, because it's like you're literally saying this is my priority. I'm curious, what time do you usually check your email?
Me?
Yeah.
Oh, like 11 to 1.
So you don't check it when you're still in bed? Like you wake up and grab your phone and
I mean, I got into the habit of that and I broke it because that is a shitty habit to have.
it totally
I
is.
check I check Facebook maybe once a day, probably
Yeah.
more like 4 times a week.
Yeah.
Um, I don't really get on social media very much, which is probably not the best if I'm trying to market myself. But I mean, I try to limit myself with all of those things and really just like if my goal is to hit a certain dollar amount per month, because that's what just because I'm experimenting with how Chen meets goals right now. So what happens if I actually set the goal? If I actually want to meet that, I need to like plan out how I'm actually going to do it and then focus on the actions that will take me towards the meeting that goal. And if I'm checking social media, unless that's a direct correlation to helping me meet that goal, I'm not going to do it. I mean, there's always wiggle room inside of all of that. I'm not perfect. So I can say this ideal thing of like, I'm not checking social media, but I go through phases. Let's just say that.
Well, and it's good to be self-aware enough to recognize that, because I know for me it's like I teach this stuff to my clients. I talk with them about my coaching clients and people who are friends of mine who are like wanting to build and develop things and whatever. But I'm the same way. It's like I'll go through bouts where like I'll delete all these social media apps off of my phone, and like massive productivity because I'm minimizing the input so that I can maximize the output.
Yep.
But I had to get off of Twitter, man. It's like this fire hose of just drama
Yeah.
all the time.
I mean, I've just been John Carlton is a really amazing copywriter. If you want like a another crash course resource in copywriting. I highly recommend his, I think it's the marketing secret, in kick-ass copywriting secrets of a marketing rebel. It's like $100 and it's like a nice thick book of where he teaches you about direct response copywriting, which is where you're sending a sales letter or you're asking someone to take an action that's inevitably ending up in a purchase. And one of the chapters in that book, he talks about what he calls Operation Money Suck, where he really hammers home your job as the owner of the business is to bring in the money. So when you're doing anything that is not that, you're basically losing it's the opportunity cost. You're losing out on basically all of the time that you could be spending like bringing in new clients, bringing in money. And it carries over even into things like when there's emergencies and when there's all of this stuff that's needing attention, is to really get focused on what are the highest priority things for you as a business owner. Really, it's to be marketing and selling yourself and doing a really good job fulfilling client work. But even more than that, it's like your highest priority is to be bringing in the dollars, because as he says it, it's like having money solves all of the problems that not having money creates. So the amount of stress that you have by not having money is going to go way down by actually having money, which allows you to actually do better work and take that time off and get the self-care and do all of the things you actually want to do that actually fuel you up to do better work. A lot of times, I'm really working on this now, where there's a really big mental switch that has to happen from time for money to value for money. And I'm still working on that, because when I get stressed about having enough cash or making enough in the month, my immediate response is, oh, I need to go do some work for a client because that's going to make money for me. And that's not actually what it is anymore, because I do all packages now. And so I catch myself like, oh, I'm stressed about money, I have to go complete a project or do this thing, which actually, no, I need to go market myself and like schedule a webinar or write a post or do something that gets me out there and actively visible. And even just this week, I had an example of it, and it's like my whole stress level just goes down because I'm actually like taking that hour in the morning, going a little bit further than that and like scheduling the webinar. Scheduling webinars, getting out there and doing talks, following up with leads, doing all of those things. So
do you have no, that's really good. I mean, I deal with the same thing just in our business. Like, I'm actually kind of in this interesting transition period with our business. Like, we've been doing, we started our company as a web design branding agency. We kind of did that by accident because I was doing a lot of my own content. I was writing every day, and I'd built this big audience with a blog that I had a number of years ago. And that's actually how I met Brent, who's still watching right now. So
Nice.
he's one of my original true fans, and he actually just lives down the street from me now. So really, it's kind of cool how all this stuff, like if you really lean into creating your content and writing for that one person, you really can make really great relationships over time. But in terms of where we're at now, I would love to be doing this kind of thing much more often and focusing more on speaking and training other people in how to do this kind of stuff, as opposed to me going and like building out someone else's funnel or whatever. Because it's like I just released my second book. I'm wanting to focus more on getting that out there and doing speaking engagements and stuff. But like you said, whenever you're kind of in that zone of like, how am I gonna pay my bills this month or next month or whatever, you're like, I need to go out and hustle and grind and whatever, and it's so counterproductive. It completely like sabotages the stuff that you're doing, that actually, if you keep just doing it, you're gonna open up opportunities that otherwise you wouldn't have. So with that, how have you, I guess, like, what does that look like for you whenever you're putting yourself out there for people who are maybe in a similar situation where it's like, um, how do you position yourself? Like, whenever, do you like go to networking events? Are you going to like chamber of commerce type things? Or, I mean, what does that look like?
Yeah. I set a kind of goal for myself of making myself get out of the house and go to a live in-person event at least twice a month, preferably once a week. Usually it's about my like bare minimum is twice a month. And as long as I do that, I feel good because I'm making face-to-face connections and I'm talking to people about what it is that I do. And when I'm talking to people about what it is that I do, I get more practice in talking about what I do. And I'm building a network and I'm building connections and I'm building an audience, an in-person audience, which is far more likely to convert than an online audience, at least in like initially. Um, yeah, and then I'm actively working on booking myself for speaking engagements and doing live events with people, or like actually doing workshops and things, because when I'm in person with someone rather than like on a webinar, they actually get a feel for my energy and for what it is, like who I am as a person. And there's that actual, like, that authenticity comes through, the genuineness comes through, and I'm able to just kind of naturally attract and feel, because I'm a really sensitive person, where or who like I would really enjoy working with. I can usually tell when I'm speaking like that someone is really resonating with what I say, and almost inevitably they just come up to me afterwards and say, how can I work with you? And it's pretty awesome. I really enjoy that. So that's
So,
usually what I'm doing right now.
so when you talk about going out and doing live events and workshops and things, just on a practical side, like, are you contacting venues that basically have space that's open? Like, what does that look like for you? Are you going to like coffee shop? You know what I mean? Like, just
Yeah. Well, the first thing that I did is I thought about where are the people that I want to work with, and then where are they hanging out, and what are the spaces where I could give presentations where they already are. And so for me, because I'm talking to business owners, it's going to be co-working spaces. If you're kind of like a healer, you're doing some kind of physical thing, or you're in some kind of a more alternative space, like a personal development workshop, you could still go to a co-working space because that could be fun for you and expand your audience that way. Or you can just think about, where are the people that I want to serve hanging out already, and how can I put myself in front of them? That's the basic, like, the secret to traffic is right there. Is just think about, where are they and how can I put myself in front of them? So in that scenario, you could think about yoga studios or retreats, or um, even in California, we have lots of ceremonies and things like that. Just Meetup is an amazing place to go find groups of people grouped around specific interests.
you mean meetup.com?
Meetup.com.
Yeah.
Yeah. Meetup.com, because a lot of the time a meetup, an organizer will be actively looking for people to come in and give a presentation or a talk to the group that they've created, because it's they want to give their audience a lot of value. So that's how I approached it. Yeah.
Very cool.
Yeah.
And yeah, if you guys haven't checked out meetup.com, it's been a couple of years since I've used it, but it's an excellent place. Like, if you're wanting to build any kind of tribe or business for any reason whatsoever, like it or not, you have to put yourself out there.
Yeah.
And so, I mean, for the introverts out there, how do you yeah, so, and Brent said too, do you have any tips on how to figure out who your audience is?
Yeah, market research.
So
Like,
what define, like, what is that? I'm
yeah,
super like, yeah.
so for me, there's a couple different levels. Obviously the best is going to go to, so if you have, like, okay, I have this idea of someone that I want to serve. I want to help people who have low energy, and I want to help them with their diet so they have more energy. Like, there you have an idea of what you want to do to help people. Then just go through your mind and think of a list of people who are the 2 or 10 people that come to mind who could possibly have this problem that you could help them with, and then reach out to them, ask them if they'd be willing to spend 15 minutes with you and have you ask them some questions. Ask them what they're struggling with. What does that actually feel like? What is the everyday experience that, like, of having low energy actually feel like? And out of those interviews that you do, you'll get a really good sense. Probably 2 to 4, maybe 5 of them are going to be like, I could really help that person. I could really make an impact in their life. And then just isolate those ones, group them together, and look at the common themes that pop up. And there you basically have your audience right there. And if you just start talking to those people and then continue to do interviews like that as you progress, because your message and your audience will evolve as you evolve. If you keep doing those interviews and refining the messaging that you create initially over time, you will very, very effectively define your audience and who it is that you want to serve in a way that's actually like in a feel good way to you, because you're identifying out of the like 10 people that you interviewed, these are the ones that I get really inspired about helping. And when you craft your messages around those specific people, you'll be attracting those same types of people, because you're basically using, the key is to keep track of their language. So if someone says, I wake up in the morning and I just feel like lethargic, and I think the thought in my head, oh God, this is going to be another day like that. You want to write down, I wake up in the morning and I feel really lethargic, and I think to myself, like, literally write down verbatim what they say, not he wakes up with low energy, because that's not what is your ideal person is actually saying. So I hope, does that answer, Brent?
Yeah, and Brent has a web comic that he's trying to get out there.
Okay.
So he's saying, suppose you don't have a service product, say you make something frivolous like art. First, I don't think it's frivolous. I think it's hilarious. Um, but I guess my thought on that would be same kind of thing. It's like, talk to people who consume web comics, talk to people at Comic Cons, find
Yeah.
out why is it that you regularly will be consuming these content or this content versus the myriad of other content out there. I mean, what are your thoughts on that,
Yeah.
Chen?
So this touches a little bit on one of the most common mistakes that I see people make, which is they build a product before they find a market, or they make a product before they find a market. And it's much, much easier to find a market that has a problem, that's looking for a solution with very few solutions out there, and then make that solution for them. It's so much easier to do that than it is to make something and then try and sell it. A lot of people, like, especially if they're a coach, they're like, oh, I want to do an online course, so I'm going to go make this online course. And then I'm like, oh, cool. How do I sell it? Oh, no. Whoops. Then they don't know how to sell it, because they built a course based on what they think would be really good or what they think someone needs, rather than going out and asking people what they want and building something based around what they want.
So
And go ahead.
I was just going to say, so like in the context of even something that some people might think is frivolous, like a web comic, like asking people who consume comics and, go to Comic Cons and whatever, it's like, what is it about this
Yeah.
famous comic that you really like, and then force them to actually ask themselves, well, maybe it's the I like that the humor is ironic, or you know what I mean. It's like you kind of figure out what it is that
Yep.
they actually like, instead of just like, oh, haha, I like this. This is funny. It's
Yep.
more of, you find out their why, and then you can actually craft content around that.
Yeah. And the key is to remember, it's like you don't have to copy anyone else. You can take the elements that people say they enjoy or that they say they're wanting, and then you do that, and you do it in your own way. That's where that story element comes in, where you're taking what people are telling you and then you're making it your own. You're looking at the examples of what other people have done. So, like, if we're looking at this example of a comic book, if I was advising on marketing, I would say, since you're probably already writing it, I would go, so who, like, just identify your ideal audience. Who's your ideal reader? Who are you writing it for? A lot of the times, we think that we're creating something for ourselves, which in reality, like, we are, but we're also writing it to be consumed by someone else. So go and actually identify who is your ideal reader, who's going to like not only love what you read, but go tell all of their rabid comic book reading friends to go buy your comic book and read it. Like that's like a, you want to find that person. And if you have some kind of a readership built up already, go back to those people and interview them. What did you like about what did you like about the comic? What did you not very much about it? Would you recommend it to your friends? What are other comics that you're buying right now? That's a really key question that any business owner can ask. What was the last product you bought to try to help you solve this problem? You might not think that like a comic book helps someone solve a problem, but I would argue the opposite, is that it helps people actually connect to, entertainment is the driving force behind our American Western society. And I used to play a lot of video games in high school because I thought I couldn't connect with people and I was really insecure. So the only way that I could actually connect with someone was through playing video games online. And it provided a service for me. It actually solved a pain that I had. So connecting into those things that your past readership have had, or if you don't have past readership, going out and even first brainstorming yourself, who is that ideal client? What are they, what is it that they want in a comic book? And then creating content that, meets them. And just by doing that, you're basically you're actively building a relationship with your audience by asking them what they want and then responding by creating something. That takes time. It's like any relationship, it's built over time. It's not going to be like date to marriage. Some that happens for some people, but like your message and all of the things that you do to market yourself will be refined over time. So don't think that it's just going to happen like overnight. Even in the market research stuff that I suggest, like it's an ongoing process. I continue to do it for my business and continue to refine the big problem that I solve for my clients, and what is the big thing that I help people with. How do I talk about what it is that I do? So I think that answers how to market a comic book.
I think that's great. And we're just about out of time here today. So just to kind of wrap it up, I mean, are there any other pointers or tips that you'd like to share for anybody who's watching? Just even like some kind of quick takeaways. There's been a lot of really great ones already, but if there's anything else that just comes to mind.
The biggest one is always trust your intuition. Like there's no amount of money that's worth compromising your values. And there's a very real reality that, money is a reflection of the universe. It's energy, and inherently, like on its own, without human contact, it is just a representation of the energy of the universe. So in my experience of my own life, when I've stood firm in my own values and followed my intuition, the universe has always responded by giving me the most amazing experiences of life. And the same can be said of your own business and the clients that you work with. And to follow that intuition, that if something doesn't feel right, you don't have to do it. And to trust, like just to fall back into the loving arms of the universe that abhors spaces. If you open up a space, it will fill it up with something. So would you rather it be filled with something that doesn't totally feel right, or say no to something that doesn't totally feel right and hold the space for it to be filled with something that is the perfect thing? That can be applied to a lot of things, but that's
excellent advice. Excellent advice. Thank you for that. Okay, so that's about all we have for today, guys. If you guys are watching on this live, if you wouldn't mind just dropping a comment and write #live, and if you watch this on the replay, just write #replay. It helps me make better content for you guys. And also, Chen, how can people find you? Is there anything that you want people to know about? Do your little spiel here.
Yeah, I mean, if you're curious about email, or if you want help with email copywriting, you can go to my website, chenlehner.com. I have a free download of 22 subject line ideas. I kind of shy away from templates because then you sound like everyone else. So it's 22 proven ideas, some subject line ideas that I've used with my clients, and I've seen that they've worked again and again and again. So they're on there. I think there's a couple formulas too that I really like. And then if you're curious about seeing me actually do work on Tuesday this week at 2:30 p.m. Pacific, I'm hosting a live email copywriting open house on a Zoom webinar. I can post the link into the comments here. And I will be going live and actually writing an email on the style of email that I write, which is very story-based and value-based and engaging, entertaining. So you keep your audience kind of coming back and always interested in reading your messages. I'll be going live and actually writing one of those emails live, and then walking through the process of how I actually think about it and how I do it, and then answering any questions you have about it. So that's at 2:30 p.m. Pacific. I'll post a link into the comments here so you can register for that.
Excellent. Thank you, Chen, so much.
Yeah.
Okay, guys, real quick, if you haven't already, I just released my second book. It's called The Science of Getting Rich, How to Think, How to Act, and What to Do to Harness Your Creative Potential. It is a book that I co-wrote with Wallace D. Wattles. He passed away in the early 1900s, so he doesn't know that I wrote this version of the book. But I basically went through and updated it and added my own commentary on it as it pertains to the creative process. It's excellent resource for anyone who's wanting to monetize their ideas and bring their own ideas to life. So you can get your copy at a discount today at scienceofgettingrich.info. Also, if you're wanting to bring your own brand or ideas to life and you need a logo, you need some design work done, you want to really refresh the style of your brand or your business, go to logos.reformdesigns.biz. We're running a special on branding packages right now for just a limited time. And other than that, if you haven't already, there's a link down at the bottom there. It's reformdesigns.biz/VIPs. Like Chen was talking about, this is so important to be building your own list and finding those people who really resonate with what you do. And I send out emails and content around startups, entrepreneurship, creativity, and those kinds of things. And you can sign up for my list down there, and I'll send you a free copy of my first book, Stop Wasting Time and Burning Money, How to Crush Procrastination and Live the Life of Your Dreams. So definitely do that if you haven't already. That is about all that I have today. Chen, any final parting words, my friend?
Rock on.
Rock on, ladies and gentlemen. Okay, folks, stay tuned for next week. I will be interviewing likely my friend Craig. He has a podcast. He is an illustrator. We're going to be talking more about building your brand, building your business, expanding your reach, and really connecting better with your audience. So that's next week. And I've got some real fun stuff that I'm planning on doing with you guys here soon. So stay tuned for that. We're going to be working on our content calendar and, basically building out a lot more structure for that over the next few weeks. So stay tuned for that. As always, friends, thank you. My name is Ryan Rhodes. I am the creative director and founder at reformdesigns.biz. And that's all we have for today. I'll talk to you next time.
Awesome.